Bonjour, and welcome to my video assignment about learning French. So the online learning site that I used was called rocketlanguages.com. There was only a 6-day free trial, so I completed the 5 30-minute sessions within the first 5 days of my trial. There was lots of different types of lessons that were offered through this site. One version was the interactive audio lesson, and this usually centered upon a conversation. So you would listen to a conversation happening in French, and they would describe the aspects of it in English. They would also give you a rocket review of what you learned from the conversation, and there was an option to just complete the rocket review, so if you need a little reminder of the conversation. You were able to just listen to the conversation, and there was also something called rocket record, which was kind of interesting because then you could actually listen to words being pronounced in French and then take a swing at yourself and see how close you were to the actual pronunciation of the word. There were language and culture lessons. One lesson that I took part in involved just the alphabet and going over each letter and then how they were pronounced in French. Also covered some certain accents. And then finally, as a little review, it covered words that involved the letters and the pronunciation of the letters that were just learned. Some more aspects of the language and culture lessons included masculine and feminine nouns, and so how le and la are used, and how consonants on the end of masculine nouns are never said. So it just gave a few examples and their English translations, and so if I were to hit the play button here, it would pronounce the word for me, and then I could also use rocket record to try to get my pronunciation correct. So my motivation for learning French is that French is a beautiful language to listen to. Whenever I hear it on TV or just in the grocery store, my ears perk up and I want to listen more. Being fluent in French is looked highly upon when applying for jobs. I've noticed that many jobs, the first 2 qualifications are being fluent in French and being fluent in English, so both are important. French is a very common language in Canada, and also some French words are similar to English words, so I figured if I started with trying to learn French, then it would be less difficult than trying to learn a different language. Did motivation help? Well, being motivated helped me in several ways during my learning process. I was eager to continue on to the next lesson. When I became frustrated, I remembered all the pros of learning French, and that got me through the sessions. And finally, I enjoy listening to the language, so I didn't mind listening to the audio lessons. I definitely enjoyed my 5 sessions of learning French. So some benefits of online learning that I found to be true was that I was able to learn on my own time. Although it was only a 6-day free trial, I was able to pick what time of the day that I wanted to complete it and sit down and do my lessons. I could replay concepts I missed or found difficult, so if I were to miss something that was said during the conversation, I could easily just hit pause, rewind a bit, and listen to it again. There was a variety of learning activities available that I've already discussed earlier, so the interactive audio lessons, the rocket record, the language and culture lessons, the lesson reviews. I could also redo difficult lessons, so if I had struggled with a certain lesson, I would just spend an extra 10 minutes and try to redo some of the parts of it. And also, the sessions were quite short. Most of the sessions were all 20 to 30 minutes long, and so I was definitely able to make time to learn this online. But some challenges of online learning is I wasn't able to ask questions. It was kind of hard to stay focused for the sessions because I didn't have somebody there watching over me, and I had little choice in what to learn. Although they did offer many different types of lessons on this site, I still had little choice in what I was actually learning, so I couldn't ask anybody to learn, oh, I want to conjugate verbs today. I kind of didn't have that leeway there. So lessons that worked best for me is I really liked the language and culture lessons because many visuals were used. I was able to go at my own pace. The English translation was always available, and there were descriptions in English as well. So although I was learning the alphabet, learning about accents, it described all of that in English, and then just the pronunciations were in French. I really liked the interactive audio lessons as well because it breaks down each conversation, clearly identifies the meaning of each word in the conversation. There was a rocket review of concepts, so they would ask you questions and then I would answer in French. And it gave me practice speaking French because they always asked me to repeat the conversation, and so I was able to practice my pronunciation. Some lessons that didn't work as well for me was the rocket record. I did like the idea of it, but I never got my pronunciation just right. And noise interferences were picked up, and so that would actually jolt it a bit. And it was time consuming because I spent a lot of time trying to get my pronunciation just right, but it just was not working the whole time. Factors that influence success in learning French. Well, the website was easy to use. The voices on the website were enthusiastic and engaging. I never got bored. The lessons were short, 20 to 30 minutes, and the first few lessons were simple. They definitely addressed the basics first. So, some factors that hindered success in learning French? Well, the time. 150 minutes? That's way too little time. Also, there's no real teacher to kick my butt and make sure that I'm staying on task. And finally, it's hard to remember what was learned in previous sessions because each session built on the last one. So the next day, they would start to move right from the lesson that they did the previous day. And so if I didn't remember some aspects of it, I felt a little bit lost. Some emotions that were felt during this experience? Well, before I began, I was a little hesitant, a little nervous. Learning a language seems a bit overwhelming. But then, during the learning process, I was motivated. I was flustered only at times when I wasn't really getting it, and a little embarrassed that sometimes I was struggling with only the first couple lessons that were definitely on the basics. But after the learning process, I was proud of my accomplishments. I was excited that I finally understood some things in French, and I was hopeful that I could actually gain some more knowledge in the future and maybe become fluent. So, learning a second language is hard work and takes much more time than 150 minutes. It is confusing and frustrating a lot of the time, and even though I am nowhere close to speaking French, I do feel like I have learned valuable information. Next time, I would probably try a few different websites out to see what they have to offer, or I would get someone fluent in French to tutor me. I feel like if I had an actual tutor, then it would have worked out a little bit better for me, because then I could ask them questions and I could ask them to focus on certain areas that I was struggling with instead of just the broad conversations that were offered through the website. So, reflecting for my role as a teacher of ELLs, well, there are some things that I will definitely keep in mind, like being patient. I need to speak clearly and slowly. I know I would get so frustrated when the conversation was going so fast that I would just get so lost and I would get upset. But whenever they spoke clearly and slowly, I was able to follow it. Use simple words. It's too overwhelming to use big words. Use pictures and actions. I definitely liked part of the language and culture lessons that they had a lot of things written down in front of me, and so it was good to actually visualize the words instead of just listening to them. And then write things down as well as saying them. It's always good to get the information in more than one way. Thank you for listening about my journey learning French.